So hi everyone, thank you for joining us again this week. We're really lucky this week to be joined by Claire MacFarlane, who's a library programmer and assistant with the Waterloo Public Library. So welcome, Claire. And you agreed to chat with me today a little bit about the work you do with the library and some ideas about how we can all get outdoors and kind of engage with our natural spaces. Claire, it would be great to start with if you could tell us a little bit about the work that you do with the library.
Sure. So I work at the Waterloo Public Library, and one thing we do is a lot of programming, and some of that programming actually involves going out and exploring nature. So one of the programs I'm currently running and will be running again in the fall is called Where the Wild Things Are. And that program is for our younger audience, so kids, kind of like toddlers to early school age kids, to encourage them to get outside. They get binoculars, a net, a bucket, a trowel, all different stuff to help them explore some of the different wild things that live in our area. And then another program that we are going to be running in the fall, and we ran this summer, is about adults getting outside and kind of exploring some of the trails that are around Waterloo. Again, they get a set of binoculars to really help them discover some of the birds and wildlife that live in our area.
Can you tell us why is the library trying to get people outdoors? And I think when we talk about libraries, often we think of being indoors with books, and this is quite a different thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that Waterloo Public Library is really trying to do is take the library outside of the library. We want people to know that the library is not just a place to take out books and to learn in that way, but also a place to kind of engage with the outside world and things that are going on in our community. So that's where part of this kind of nature programming comes in, and it's something we've done for actually quite a few years now. And we found a lot of success with it in that people really like these kind of easier ways to get involved, get outside. Maybe if you're a bit shy or nervous to get out and explore ponds or wildlife or some of the trails, we're going to help you do that in a bit easier way, and maybe a more guided way, by giving your kids activities they could do outside, or a chance for adults to meet other adults and have that kind of social aspect. But we really want people to kind of have fun and explore, but in a way that feels comfortable and easier for them.
That's awesome. And I know you've done a little bit of some various types of programming outdoors with different groups and different places. What's your favorite thing to do when you're kind of outdoors with people? What kind of activities are your favorite to engage people in?
For sure. So with kids, one thing I really love is kind of making it a game, or introducing games to them. So one of those things could be a scavenger hunt or flashcards. I know with my current group of Where the Wild Things Are kids, I gave them a series of flashcards and encouraged them to take their little cards outside when they go exploring with their parents or families, as that's a totally virtual program right now, and seeing if they can find any of those animals. So kind of making it into a game in that, like, how many cards could you get? How many can we find? And encouraging them to kind of take a look around and interact a little bit more slowly, I guess. And for adults, as I said, I think it's really fun just to encourage people to just kind of go outside and meet new people in that outdoor environment. It feels very open and easy, and to just kind of go walking. That's something that I love to do by myself, is just kind of go wandering on some of those trails. You won't get lost, so it's a nice way to go outside.
That's great. I think one of the things I'm trying to do with my residency is get people out on our trails and in our parks, and kind of just engaging and kind of experiencing those places kind of in a more purposeful way. So that's a really interesting connection. So you've talked to me a little bit before about this idea of looking carefully and kind of observing things as we're in our outside spaces. Can you tell us more about that, or how people can give that a go themselves?
I think that's something so important of when you're outside in nature is, or quite often when you're going and walking somewhere. I know for myself, often when I lived in the city, I would always be walking with such a purpose. Like, I need to get here and I need to get there fast. And you forget about kind of slowing down and taking a look. And sometimes, kids, I think, can also get kind of overwhelmed or so excited. There's so much going on, so many sounds, they don't know what to do. So one thing you can kind of do is try to slow down, and using your senses is kind of what's really important. So first, kind of using your eyes and thinking about, what do I see? What kind of things are moving around? What colors do I see on some of the animals? And that's something great for young children to get their vocabulary, is having them talk about, what do they see? What kind of color markings? What movement are they doing? Is the bird moving really fast or really slowly? And then another thing to do is to really listen. What sounds do you hear? You could have them count or talk about 3 different sounds they hear or that you hear. Are the birds calling, or the grasshoppers, or the crickets kind of chirping, other things like that. So really trying to slow down. What do you smell? There's always a lot of smells too. And I think this is also something that is great for not just children, but adults as well. As I was saying, we're always so busy, we're always going, and kind of taking that moment to kind of step back and think, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What do I feel if you're touching anything, or what does it feel like under your feet? And kind of encouraging people to slow down and take that kind of mindfulness moment, I guess you could call it, and take in their surroundings.
That's really awesome. I think I love that idea of using all of your senses and not just looking and seeing kind of different ways you can really fully immerse yourself in natural spaces. I think I had a bit of a moment like that the other day because I was documenting some things in my local park to kind of use them in my work. And I thought I really knew my local park, but when I got down to the level of looking very closely and I was looking for kinds of patterns and textures I could use, I discovered so many things that you don't really think about when you're just walking through the park quickly to go to the grocery store, or zooming through on your bike, or however it is that we use these spaces. So yeah, just kind of disconnecting from the busyness and looking in a closer way is really interesting. So thank you for that. So do you have some favorite places to get outdoors in Waterloo? Are there parks or trails that you particularly love or could recommend?
Definitely. So one that I know I have loved for the last couple years, especially when we were kind of encouraged to distance and really stay by ourselves. One trail I really loved was at Rim Park. I think it's called the Moosegetty's Trailway, but it's kind of the start of the Walter Bean Trail there. You park near the golf course and you start walking, and the whole loop I think is about it's like 4 kilometers there and back. It gets you your 10,000 steps for the day, but it's probably one of my favorite trails, especially kind of all seasons. I know in the beginning of the pandemic, we would go in the spring and it looked totally different from summer to then going again in fall. It's one of my favorite ones because it follows the Grand River. So you always see tons of wildlife. I know I went yesterday, I saw a blue heron kind of fly into the river.
Oh.
I've seen deer there. And it's really such a special one. And that's probably one of my favorites. And it's flat and it's paved. So it's a great one just for an easy walk. But, if you wanted to get some exercise or movement into your day, if you did the full thing, you get your 10,000 steps. But it's not too challenging, but it has beautiful scenery. So that's definitely one of my favorite ones to do. Another one I really enjoy in the city of Waterloo is Bechtel Park. That's a really fun one. Again, it has so many different ways you can go. So each time you visit it, you could do a different trail. You often end up on trails where you see very few people, but you're surrounded by the trees. And I think that's so special. And it's kind of like you're not really leaving the city. You're still in the city, but you feel like you are in the forest by yourself. So that's another one of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're so fortunate to have these spaces within the city limits that we can kind of completely immerse ourselves in nature. And whether you drive there or you walk there or bike or bus, whatever it is, just to have them close by and to not need to drive an hour out of the city or whatever it is to kind of connect with nature. And I love that observation you had as well about, seeing how things are different throughout the year and revisiting and seeing how, the seasons affect the landscape. Because I think in some ways we are in tune with seasons because we know if we're, got the air conditioning on or if we're shoveling snow and those kinds of connections. But the little details of, how trees change and how, your view from certain points on the trails will change as kind of things grow up or die down at different times of the year. So yeah, thanks for that observation. So do you have any recommendations for people looking to get outside and engage with nature, perhaps if they're only used to going to their local park and maybe to a playground or just walking through, but don't really kind of step off the trail or engage in a more kind of deep way?
For sure. So I think one thing you can really start with is what we were talking about earlier, where you're just kind of really taking that moment to look more carefully or listen more carefully. Or even if you find yourself getting overwhelmed, just take a couple of deep breaths and then just kind of take a look, count 3 different things you see, 3 different things you hear, or 3 different things you can feel. And so kind of taking that moment to slow down. And another thing I would say is, don't be afraid to try something new. I know the City of Waterloo on their website, I was looking at it just earlier, the trail map. I think that's a great way to kind of discover new trails, and don't put too much pressure on yourself to have to do the full trail or do this really hard one that you've heard of. Like another one I love is Bingaman's, but I know in the beginning when we first started doing them, it's quite hilly. It starts with a big climb. So, don't feel like you need to do the full trail the first time. Maybe set your goals a little smaller so they're really attainable, and then kind of increase it. So don't put that pressure on yourself to think, okay, I need to become a birder and I need to bring my binoculars, or I need to go and do this really long hike. You can make it a bit more easy and approachable. And same if you had children, kids can lose interest really quick. So just start small, and if the kids get excited about something, get excited with them. I think kids really feed off of that energy. And if they see you having fun and exploring nature, they'll do it too.
That's so great. And I love this idea of kind of doing a little bit. I grew up in like a very urban city, and I didn't consider myself to be a nature person at all. And I don't think I'd ever gone really hiking until I was an adult. But one of the ways I kind of got into being in those spaces is going with other people who enjoyed it, who I felt had some knowledge. So I felt like I was in safe hands going out into forest areas and things like that. So yeah, I love that idea of just taking it in small chunks wherever you're at, and just engaging how you can. Could you tell us a little bit about library programming and how people can, or where people can find out more information or see what you're doing?
For sure. So I think very soon we'll be releasing our fall programming guide, which is going to have loads of different programs for early years, school age kids, teens, and adults, and as well as all ages. So all that information will be on wpl.ca. We are coming out with a print guide. I'm not sure what the date is, but there will be a print guide that will probably be available to pick up at one of the Waterloo Public Library branches, or maybe some other places in the community. But definitely keep an eye on the website for more details about our programming and for how to register. Many of our programs have registrations just so we can keep the numbers kind of manageable, but all the programming is all free.
That's exciting. Thanks for sharing. I think all of these are great ways. So whether you're kind of going through library programming to get outside, or if you're just in your local park or on the trail, here's some great ideas of how you can engage that Claire's given us, but also these are great opportunities for looking and then thinking about perhaps going home and creating something in response to those, for the scavenger hunts that I'm hosting. So all great ways to be thinking about our outdoor spaces, and then perhaps some creative responses to those experiences and how we can kind of document our interactions in that way. Claire, thank you so much for joining me. I really have enjoyed your insights about how we connect to our outdoor spaces. And yeah, I hope that people can kind of take these ideas and get outside, create some things, maybe sign up for some of the library programming. Yeah, and just really enjoy the spaces that we're so fortunate to have in the city. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.